We're here with three panelists, very international, one from Tel Aviv, one from Malaysia, and one from Australia. And we're just going to simply start by, introducing yourselves, a quick 1 or 2 minute introduction about who you are, what you do, and yeah.
So I'll start. Hi, everyone. I'm Alexander Zaidelson, CEO at Beam. We're building a scalable confidential cryptocurrency based on the Mimblewimble protocol. It's a funny name, but it's a very new and very amazing protocol that allows full privacy on the blockchain and great scalability in terms of the blockchain size. Our vision is to build a currency that is both fully confidential, but can be optionally compliant, so that both businesses and individuals can use it, and everyone can choose the amount of information they want to disclose, from 0 to everything. And the idea is to give people full sovereignty over both their assets and over information about their assets. Thank you.
I'm Reuben Yap. I'm the COO of Zcoin, and Zcoin has been around since 2016. We were the first implementation of the Zero Coin protocol, which is different than the Zero Cash protocol. And we also, similar, working as a private cryptocurrency. And we also recently, were the first blockchain political election in Thailand, where 127,000 voters voted on Zcoin's blockchain nationwide. So yeah.
My name's Simon. I'm the founder of the Loki project. We're another privacy project, fork of Monero, actually. We're essentially using a masternode network to bootstrap a new onion routing network using a new onion routing protocol. And we're also using that service node network, we call them, to act as a decentralized message service. So what we're creating is an end-to-end encrypted private messaging system that uses onion routing to lock down your IP address. There's no phone numbers. And the ultimate goal is to get it to the point where when I send anyone a message, literally no one but me and that recipient knows that that message has even been sent, let alone what's in it. So that's what we're working on.
Cool. So we're going to start with some high-level questions about, of course, why privacy matters. And we'll start with, some of Tim Cook's comments on privacy at Davos, and then, of course, most recently, Mark Zuckerberg's comments on privacy, how important it is for their platforms, how they say the big giants intend to build privacy into their devices, into their networks. Just kind of a question for the panel, like, how do you see privacy play a role there? How important is it? What's this balance between privacy, security, and just your general thoughts on a high level about privacy?
Okay, so we think privacy is really a basic human right, and lately it's been slowly but steadily taken away from us in a lot of aspects of our lives. Financial life, the governments and the banks can know everything about what we're doing, and the social networks know kind of frighteningly more about ourselves than even we do. Right, so today the privacy is going away from us every day, and as the result of this, actually the good thing that's happening is that more and more people realize that and start and try to fight back in all kinds of different fronts. And now we're seeing that, Mark Zuckerberg starts talking about privacy loudly, and whatever comes out of it, it's a good sign that at least they realize that they need to do something and to address the issue and at least show people that they return the privacy back, or at least try to. So again, super important, going away from us, and we need to really fight back and get our privacy back. And we're doing that on financial cryptocurrency front. Other people are doing that on other fronts, but it needs to be more and more known and understood by everyone here and elsewhere that privacy is important, because if we don't have privacy, we don't have our freedom. And I think we all like to be free.
So, often our privacy is, I think this is kind of like an ongoing narrative that privacy is for hiding illicit activity, for drugs, for darknet type of activities. And I think we have to view privacy rather than hiding things. It's more about the ability to choose what we want to reveal to the world. Because right now we don't really have a choice. We sign up to all this, privacy policies. You click accept. If you want to use our service, you have to give up your privacy because there's no real demand for it. And not only that, it's about trusting organizations with our data. I mean, previously, our data was like segmented. One organization had one part of data, one organization had different sets of data. But now all these data sets are coming together to form a very complete view of who we are. And that's really scary. And we shouldn't be trusting these organizations with our data because there have been so many data leaks. Can we actually trust these organizations with our data? Like even China, they recently had like a breach of their surveillance systems with all that data being released out. I think we have to understand that we shouldn't be giving so much power to centralized authorities. Yes, we can, do stuff that regulates illicit activity like anti-money laundering, KYC, but there has to be a line there rather than, everything about our lives open to the government or organizations to exploit.
Yeah, I think Mark Zuckerberg's comments recently are quite interesting because it seems to be a little bit too late. And the other thing is that he's also saying that it's going to take years to rebuild Facebook such that it has encryption enabled by default and brings about all these principles, which are super important. I think to answer the question why privacy matters, you can look to George Orwell's 1984. 1984 is not actually about bureaucracy, it's about what happens when you have a society where people think that they can be watched and scrutinized at any time, which is becoming increasingly the case unless we start to see these major tech companies actually take a stand and respect people's privacy by implementing things correctly using existing technologies out there. I mean, they did so with WhatsApp, which is great, and they really tried to cater that experience to make it intimate, but there's still a lot of metadata that flows through that thing, and so I think it's critical that there are people out there always working towards providing the general public with the best possible privacy, because I think privacy really is just an extension of security. Like, you wouldn't think your bank was very secure if it was trivial for someone to be able to reveal your transaction history, which is exactly the case with what happens with Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is secure, but I would say that privacy is actually just an extension of that security as well. So it's important for a number of reasons.
Cool. Yeah, and then I guess the counter argument to sort of this general feeling about privacy is why is it important in the sense that you have all my data, you know everything about me, but these companies are able, because of that, to provide you the best services, the best goods, the best, most relevant ads. And so I give up, privacy, but I get, better service, better goods, better services. How do you think about that? And where does privacy play a role in that when you can get free services, good services? What are you really giving up?
So I think we have become kind of used to all this convenient stuff. When Google it reads all my emails and shows me my flights, is like very convenient, right? And when Facebook shows me the events that might be and really are interesting to me, it's kind of convenient. But then if you think where it can get us in the future and where this data and this knowledge can end up, a lot of people start getting scared, and rightfully so, because we're giving up so much, we're getting some convenience and some goodies, not monetary even, but just convenience in return. But the end of this road looks very scary, and it might get us to 1984. And we don't want to be there. So again, we all need to think and understand that we are giving away probably way too much for those little conveniences in our lives, and it may end up in a very scary place.
I think it has to be an informed choice. Like, for example, I think this is something that really bugged me. Like I use an Android phone. I thought that if I turn off my location and the location tracking, it would stop tracking my location. But it turns out that it is continuously tracking my location unless I go to this obscure setting that says disable Google and web activity, which is, is total rubbish, right? How would I know that? And it's okay if someone willingly says, yeah, okay, I want this convenience. Like, yes, I do all my bookings, all my flight bookings with Gmail because I like the convenience, but I'm making a conscious choice to reveal that. And I think as long as users are aware, rather than reams and reams of privacy, agreements, just saying that we can track your location everywhere if you do this. And if people actually understand that, I think people will be a lot more careful of, yeah, maybe I don't need, like Siri, or maybe I don't need certain features because I value my privacy. And as long as the population has to be aware of it, but if they aren't, they just click accept and it goes. And I think it's more about an awareness issue.
I see. So what you're saying is people need to have a choice.
Yeah.
And right now, people just don't have a choice. Everything is just owned by these few companies.
Well, like on paper, people do have a choice, right? You can always not accept the agreement, but it's like opt out, right? So if you don't do anything, you are not private. And we all know that if you, law of big numbers works, like opt out is like a very tiny portion of people would even care to go and understand what to click and what to remove, right? If it's possible at all. So maybe the right way is to make it really an opt-in thing, like this sharing is not something that is on by default, but something that you consciously turn on. But then most of the people won't do that. Yeah. And then the business models will be kind of ruined, some of them.
I don't think the advertising is one thing, and that does bring us some convenience, and with the rise of Amazon and everything else, with super fast delivery of online shopping and all that sort of thing. That's all great, but I think that we're seeing a resurgence of actually more curated content becoming more popular. Like the whole 2016 US election really brought to the front of people's minds that if we really do just plug into this very large data set and become a part of it and let it feed us what we want to see, that can be quite dangerous and actually reduce the scope of things, high quality things that we see in our lives. So I think over time people are going to be willing to sacrifice small pieces of convenience for higher quality goods, higher quality content, and higher quality conversations and communities as well. I think the future is not in one big Facebook conglomerate. I think we've all now realized that that's not a very good idea, and we are very happy to separate aspects of our financial, our work lives, our social lives into different apps and different places online, and I think that's going to continue to be the case. So but then again, this tracking thing is quite a pertinent issue for us because we have this anonymous messenger. How the hell do we track what our users are doing in order to improve the experience if it's all private by default? And as you said, opting in is a very rare thing. Like you might get 1 or 2% and there'd be a certain type of user as well, so you wouldn't get a complete picture of how to design things for the average user. So these are interesting questions, but if privacy really is the thing that you're targeting, you should be uncompromising in it, I believe.
Cool. Well, let's switch topics. Let's talk about cash. And cash is probably the most untraceable private technology that exists. My thinking around this is, I do think that it's inevitable that we all move towards a digital or cashless society. I think for me, the question is not whether we're moving digital. I think the question is, are we moving centralized digital 1984, or are we moving more digital, having more decentralized peer-to-peer? So my question is, like, your comments on that, you agree or disagree with that? And how do you see privacy coins play the role of cash in today's financial system?
So I start? So yeah, definitely there is a movement towards cashless society, digital cash, although some countries are doing it more than others. Like I know that people in Germany are not giving up on their cash and just getting their paychecks, and some people just take out all the cash because they like privacy and they also like zero fees. People in Japan are using a lot of cash as well. I think in the United States, the green dollar is still a favorite, so a lot of people use cash there too. But of course, it's somewhat more convenient to just take out your phone or a small piece of plastic and make your payment. But the cash will not go away so fast, I think, because it's still convenient, people like it, and it has a lot of advantages on traceability. Now, in our view, a private coin or any digital coin should be very close in its properties to actual cash. And that's what we're trying to build at Beam. Because with cash, for every transaction, you can choose the level of information you disclose, right? When I buy a coffee at Starbucks or any other place, I usually get a cash register slip, a receipt, right? So there is a paper trail on this transaction from their side, but not from mine. If I come and buy maybe a car with cash, then I might sign a contract, right? And then there is some KYC from my side, and of course there is this contract is signed by the dealership, whatever. So and then those papers go somewhere and are reported, and then this cash ends up in the bank. So what we want to achieve is a situation where for each kind of a transaction, both participants choose the level of disclosure and who the disclosure goes to. If it's a private transaction, no disclosure to anybody. If it's buying a house with this coin or making a B2B transaction that needs to be later reported to an auditor, then both sides choose to put some papers on the blockchain and later show them to the auditors.
I'm actually, like Christine Lagarde was like speaking on the IMF, talking about centralized government, digital currencies. Of course, many people misread that as cryptocurrencies, but as to whether we'll be moving towards a centralized model or a pure P2P model, I think governments ultimately want monetary control. I think it will be hard to build a system where it's like truly decentralized. And you've seen that, often it's always talking about the same things: anti-money laundering, terrorist funding. The same things are being used to argue against privacy. And one of the things, especially like with cash, because yeah, sure, he knows maybe person A, like he knows Reuben bought a coffee. That's not too bad. But like for example, if I use something like a digital currency, or even like let's say just use Bitcoin as an example, when the person receives the money, he not only knows that you paid them for this service, but he also potentially knows what you've done in the past. Like, oh, he went to a competitor, or he has this much of money, and that's also a privacy risk. But I feel that for cashless societies, take a look, China is the best example of everything moving to WeChat Pay and all these things, and people embrace it because it's so convenient, and even like, you get bonuses with continued use, some cash systems. Of course, I feel that, ideally cash exists alongside cashless type of systems, but there has to be a population, there has to be a want. Like, similarly, we were talking about like Facebook, if the Cambridge Analytica scandal didn't happen, all these things, people would be still accepting and giving up their privacy. And I don't think that many people are actually fully comprehending what they are doing if they just move to pure cashless. And I think that has to be moved to more of a forefront. Yeah.
I think there's a number of issues that are brought up when we discuss the comparison between privacy coins and cash. Not to double up on anything else, I think I'd like to talk about the recent bans that have been proposed by the Texas state legislature and the French government, and historically the Japanese government as well, for private cryptocurrencies such as Zcash, Monero, and others. So the curious thing about it is that obviously these countries also have cash. They use it extensively, which is entirely untraceable. So it seems somewhat hypocritical and often very misguided as well. I think probably the main concern comes with cross-border payments, because of course the thing with cash is it's physical. So you have to move it somehow, which is quite difficult. And that's another thing that's appealing about cash, because you've always being able to have it and put it under your bed, and then you bring in the store of value argument and everything else, and the volatility with cryptocurrencies and centralized cryptocurrencies that people can use to get that property as well. So there's a number of issues here. I don't think we've yet seen a privacy coin really do a fantastic job of becoming a digital replacement for cash. This is something that practically all of us are trying to work on in some regards, and there's lots of technical discussions that have to be had about the trade-offs that you can make in order to achieve cash-like qualities. But I think there's probably another few years before we work out really the best way to do that. And then the next question is are people really going to use it? Like, if we are going truly digital with our money, where does privacy fit into it? And I truly believe that there is, but I think it could run face-to-face with any government-created coins or anything like that. I honestly think there will be government-created cryptocurrencies, and it'd be very interesting to see what kind of transparency mechanisms they implement there as well, because I don't think we're going to see any government put a cashless system forward that reveals every transaction to everyone. I think there has to be some semblance of privacy for that to be widely adopted and widely used. So how they're going to do that technically is of great interest to me, and how that conflicts with some of the legislation that we're now seeing coming up as well.
The legislation part is quite interesting, especially like the Japanese ban on privacy coins, because it was a response to a hack on CoinCheck, which on NEM, which isn't a privacy coin. And a lot of the time regulators do gut reactions, and they just every time they bring up AML, KYC, terrorist funding. When banning privacy coins, because of a hack that had nothing to do with privacy coins, none of the coins seemed to be laundered through privacy coins. It was just to be seen as doing something.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the case with most regulators. Like even like the France report, they were talking about, I wouldn't name them, but some currencies that don't even provide real privacy.
No, exactly.
Obviously they don't understand the technology enough, and they're just like, oh, privacy coin's bad. And what they may actually happen is that if you embrace privacy coins, allow them to be traded on regulated exchanges, which do AML, KYC, you can combat a lot of the so-called abuses of movements of large money, like OTC desks, AML, KYC. Make sure they're all regulated. If you ban them, you are encouraging the rise of DEXs and P2P exchanges, which then make it so much difficult to control. So rather than taking a very gut reaction response and just ban it, because it's similar to the music industry, they tried to prevent privacy and then they realized, oh yeah, just make it easy, and then you can still kind of regulate it. I guess there's similar parallels there. And I just hope that governments really understand what they are trying to do there. Do you want to have some control, or do you want to just let it all go dark?
Yeah, I don't actually think banning private cryptocurrencies is going to have the effect that they want at all. If anything,
it's not really possible.
No.
I mean, it's good luck with that. How can you ban a privacy coin, right? It's something I have it's the 12 words I have in my head. So, I mean, you can ban it in regulated exchanges, that's right. But you cannot really ban owning it, transacting it, you cannot trace it. So and I agree that a sane and forward-looking government needs to understand that this technology is here. The private digital money is here. You can ban it. Yeah, it won't have any effect, but you can say you banned it, and then what? Search people's phones for wallets? I mean, it won't work.
Preventing accepting as a payment form would, of course, yeah.
But the right way is to say, well, the technology is here. Let's see how it can fit what we're doing, instead of moving it all into the darknet. And when people say that cryptocurrency is used for bad stuff, the currency that's used for bad stuff is United States dollars, right? And fiat. So nobody's blaming, Alan Greenspan, who is signed on a lot of those for drug dealerships and all that kind of stuff. So it's not the money. It's, there are criminals, and the governments have our tax money to go after those criminals, regardless of what kind of means the bad guys are using. Right?
And the worst,
it's all the means,
the worst thing is that, you know, money laundering is happening in our existing financial systems, and then they're just slapped with a fine. No one goes to jail, and that is where all the crap is happening. And yet governments are just letting it happen because they're too big to fail. And you know, I find it really hypocritical to target privacy coins there when the elephant is just right there, standing there. You know,
breaking the China.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's get to the technical part of the talk.
Sure.
Like, just kind of discuss some high-level privacy techniques. You guys, like, Loki is a fork of Monero. You know, you're using Mimblewimble. Like, what are the trade-offs, the vulnerabilities you think about when you design your privacy coins, and help us understand all the different privacy techniques?
I think it's quite a well thought out panel, because we've got three members here from the three sort of main modern day privacy techniques. So there's probably, would you like to start, Alex, with?
Yeah.
Like Zcash, Monero, and now Mimblewimble.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we really have three different approaches with, you know, I'll speak about Mimblewimble. Mimblewimble being the latest invention in that space. This protocol was published just a little more than 2 years ago by an anonymous person. And the protocol kind of turned all the Bitcoin architecture upside down. So instead of having addresses and moving money between addresses, Mimblewimble actually designs a system where you have like, the blockchain is actually like a huge wall of safe deposit boxes that look exactly the same, and users just have keys to their safe deposit boxes. So if I want to send Reuben some money, I take my box and just let Reuben change the key, and we both sign the transaction. Or I split it into two boxes, and then I leave one change box for me, and the other, I give the other box to Reuben here. So, and the blockchain can verify that whatever I had in the box, in the initial box, was divided into two boxes and no new money was printed. And they can do that without knowing the actual amount. So it's a really cool technology because we don't have to hide any information on the blockchain because it's just not there from the first place, right? And the advantage is, you know, very good privacy and also good scalability because we don't even have to store the transaction history on the blockchain. So, you know, we can talk about some deficiencies. One of the prices or one of the disadvantages or the price we have to pay for that is that for every transaction, both sides need to talk, right? Because for me to send Reuben some money, I need to give him the box, give him the key, let him change the key, and then we both sign it. So in Mimblewimble, if you want to send the money to somebody, unlike Bitcoin where you just need to know the address and send it to them and they can pick it up 10 years from now, in Mimblewimble both sides need to talk. And they need to be online, not necessarily in the same time, but in the close proximity in time. So
quickly, we have 1 minute left, so each kind of describe your techniques.
Sure, so the CryptoNote protocol, Bitcoin was the first to come out, Monero was sort of shortly after that, and there's been a plethora of other forks. Uses three main techniques to obfuscate transaction history. The first is ring signatures, which is one that's talked about the most, but is actually only one of these three techniques. It's where, if you know how UTXOs on the Bitcoin blockchain work, you have various outputs which can be spent and sent to other people. The way ring signatures work is that when you create an output and you send it, you mix it in with a bunch of older or possibly older outputs so that you can hide the output. You can hide when outputs are actually being spent, so it's not clear at all what's going on. You mix it in with they mix it in with 10 other transactions. The next one is stealth addresses, so instead of me sending it directly to your address and that being able to be linked on the blockchain, you use a Diffie-Hellman key exchange to essentially send it to a one-time address, which prevents the sender being known, and then the final one is ring CT. We now use bulletproofs for that, which allows you to prove that you have sent a positive amount of money, i.e. you're not printing money, but means you don't actually have to show how much money is being spent in each transaction. So through that, we can hide the recipient, the sender, and the amount using those 3 techniques. The downsides are the transactions used to be a lot larger. They're now a lot smaller thanks to bulletproofs, and you have to scan back through the blockchain to see your transactions, which can make the mobile experience a little bit less nice, but they're the main trade-offs.
I'll quickly just explain, like, basically what we're trying to do is, on the blockchain, the main thing that reviews identity, or it's the relationship between addresses and the transaction flows. Both Mimblewimble and CryptoNotes, their strategy is basically to hide your transaction in the crowd with other transactions or decoy transactions. So you're just trying to, you're mixing your transactions with a large crowd of people. While for us, we're more about like ability to destroy the coin, and at any time in the future to redeem a brand new one with no transaction history. So in that case, we feel that the links between the old coin and the new coin are completely broken. So that's just like a different approach than, let's say, like a decoy transaction-based type of system.
Well, thank you. That's the time we have. We still have some time for a few questions. Are any questions for our panelists, for Simon, Alex, and Reuben?
Do you guys think that the future of messaging should be completely private?
I think that's a question for you.
I certainly think that there should be a way to do completely private messaging. I don't think that there will ever be a case that there will be complete and utter private messaging on all platforms for everything. I don't think that's entirely necessary, particularly when it comes to group messaging, because if we're all in a room and we are all in this massive group chat with, I don't know how many people here, maybe 200, all it takes is one of you to screenshot that conversation, and then it's basically a public conversation. So privacy can really only be achieved in small groups of people when it comes to messaging. So I don't think there's ever going to be a future where we'll see because the people are ultimately, at the end of the day, the source of most information leaks and data hacks as well. So I think that's the critical issue here. But technically, is it possible? Yes. But practically, probably not.
I think actually one of the things with like messaging, to me, I see as one of the pillars of a decentralized society, like decentralized communications, decentralized production, decentralized law enforcement. If we have a system where people can communicate freely, like just allow the ideas to, communicate without fear of censorship, I think that's something we should go towards too. Rather than, if we have someone that's like overlooking what we are saying or who we are talking to, that potentially is a source of censorship. Of course, there's some arguments, whether we should let child pedophile rings talk in private and stuff like that. But I think as a general whole, we should be free to express our opinions without fear of surveillance of what we're saying, because then we can truly, freely express who we are as a human being.
Yeah, I would just add that I agree with Simon that there is like the technology piece which can be solved, but the human piece, like if I say something bad about the government to a friend, nothing prevents him to just screenshot this conversation and go to the police if I live in a state where saying a thing is like illegal.
And
right?
that's
it's
the case.
Both the society in general and the technology. So of course the technology can help us communicate in private and not let prying eyes look into what we're saying. But if people in the group want to reveal it to the law enforcement, which can actually kind of prosecute me for saying things, technology cannot solve that really.
It's only provided if the system reviews the identity, though.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. The law enforcement agencies over the last 20 years have been handed this amazing thing on a platter. It's like, hey, you can see what most people are saying most of the time without having to do much work at all. It's great. And now it's starting to be taken away from them with end-to-end encryption. So guess what, police? It means you have to go back and do good old police work like you used to. So I don't think anything's changed in that regard.
I think that's our time. Let's thank the panel, Reuben, Simon, and Alex. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.